I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Good, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, glad to meet you. And my name is HK. I'm Korean. Glad to meet you.
Nice to meet you, HK. My name's Alicia and I'm from England.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So, it's the first time that I've met you. So, before we start, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. Good. I'd like to introduce myself briefly. As I mentioned, I'm Korean and my Korean name is Gu, but maybe it's a little difficult to pronunciate for the foreigner, right? So you can call me simply HK. HK is my initial name, right? And then my hobby is I have various hobbies before. For example, swimming, climbing, uh, and golfing, and so on. But these days, I like taking a walk with my family, especially near my house. There is a small river, and then it's very good to take a walk along the river. So it's so good for me. And then these days I should study English very so much because last year I changed my job, and then my job is related to manage the foreign subsidiaries in the world. My company has a various subsidiary in the world, so it's very important to communicate with them. So it's very important to improve my English skill as soon as possible. So this class purpose is that. And then my job is accountant, and I have worked for around 20 years for the accounting and tax job. And then, mm, oh yeah, I have one son and one daughter. And so that's all. Do you have a question for me?
Thank you very much for introducing yourself.
Yeah.
So, you live somewhere close to the river, so it's very nice to go for a walk.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very nice.
Mm.
So, my name's Alicia, as I said, and I'm from England.
Yeah.
But right now I'm in Taiwan.
Ah, really?
Yeah, I have been traveling for 2 years.
Wow.
So, I move place almost every month.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And in my spare time, I like trying new foods and trying different foods from other countries.
Yes. Actually, I have worked in China for around 5 years, 10 years ago. So I am so familiar to Chinese culture and Taiwan culture. I've been to Taiwan twice.
Yeah.
So most of all, I think there are so many delicious and famous Taiwan dishes, right? So
Yes, so many to try. It's
yeah,
very good. The food here is really delicious.
yeah. Frankly, comparing to Taiwan and Asian dishes,
Mhm.
frankly, English dishes is a little not good. Like fish and chips, right?
Exactly. It's very boring, very plain food.
Yeah.
Compared to other Asian dishes, it's so bland.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, so you've chosen this article for today.
Yes.
So, as I said, I'm from England, and this article is talking about housing in England.
Mhm.
And the government, basically, there is like government housing for people who
Yeah.
can't afford to buy a house.
Mhm.
And that is people who are low income.
Mhm.
Sometimes it might be people like refugees who are fleeing from other countries. We have a lot of immigrants in our country as well.
Mhm.
So a lot of the time, those are the kinds of people that are living in government housing.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, like you said, a lot of the time it's linked to money.
Yes, I also I watched the content in YouTube related to the English housing problem. Especially, I know that the living cost of England is so high.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Korea also has a similar situation. For example, housing price is so expensive in Korea. For
Yeah.
example, Korean salaryman has a dream to buy a house for a long time. We should collect the money, but unfortunately, increasing of the housing price get higher and higher faster than the salary, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
You can't earn the money fast enough because the prices are increasing.
Yeah.
I have read that, or somebody told me actually, somebody who lives in Seoul told me that now it is becoming almost as expensive as New York to live in
Yeah.
Seoul.
Yeah, you're right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It's so expensive, and
Yes.
you know, people's salaries are not getting any higher, so it's very difficult.
Yes.
So what about yourself? Have you lived in any privately rented homes?
Oh, have you lived in any privately rented homes? Yeah, sure. I also have experience to live the privately rented house, but unfortunately, I also felt that it was so expensive. It was so big problem. So I bought the house, even if I should borrow much money from the bank. So these days, I also have a big volume of the borrowing, but anyway, I have a house. Actually, 2 or 3 years ago, uh, just before the pandemic, the housing price increased so fast and so much. So, unfortunately, I bought the house before that. So, these days, I'm so satisfied to buy a house at a time, but these days, so many people cannot buy a house until now. So it's the big problem in Korea, frankly. Mhm.
I also read about, especially the young people in Korea,
Mhm.
instead of dreaming of buying a house, they realize that it's probably not very realistic. So
Yeah.
they are just like
Mhm.
living to rent, basically. They just want to make enough money to pay their rent.
Mhm.
They don't have any aspiration or dream of owning their own property.
Yeah. On the other hand, we can expect that the price will be decreased in the future because we think that the population of Korea is going to decrease and decrease. I think we think so. So in the future, the housing price will get decreased.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
we have a we are confused. We are confused to buy a house or not, right?
Yeah, exactly, because you're expecting it to drop, so it's a really big investment.
Yes. Actually, Japan has a similar situation, similar experience to lose the value value of the price house. So maybe Korea can follow that case in the future. We have a concern about it.
Yeah, because maybe Japan is a little bit further on, because Japan has a huge aging population now, don't they? And I guess that Korea is going to face the same thing maybe in 20, 30 years' time.
Yes.
So in your country, do people your age generally own or rent their home?
Until now, salarymen, especially salarymen, would like to buy a house. That's the dream, salaryman's dream. But as I mentioned, in the future, we can expect that the housing price will get decreased so fast. So I'm not sure. So maybe in the future.
I think in England maybe it's the same problem. I think people want to buy a house, and maybe the older generations, most people own their houses or they have a mortgage that they're paying off. But younger people are renting because they can't afford the deposit of the house.
Yes.
So does your country have any policies that protect people from the stress of private renting?
Does your country have any policies that protect people from the stress of the private renting? The government has tried to make any policies to protect people from the stress of the private renting and about housing, but unfortunately, government has failed many times. For example, government try to manage the housing price based on the tax. Based on the tax. For example, government would like to give the tax payment to the rich to have many houses, right? But unfortunately, that policy could make the price of the house increased so fast. Because anyway, the tax should be paid by a person to rent a house finally. So unfortunately, that policy was failed at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So they aren't doing anything for example, young people who are trying to buy a house. There is no support for them from the government.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very difficult time.
Actually, so I think anyway, economic problem can be solved by economic rule. I think so. So, for example, if the housing price get higher, the company, for example, the company can build more apartment, more houses. That's the solution. I think so.
Yeah, definitely. So what about your country? Do you have a social housing program?
For example, it's related to the lend money from the bank. For example, anyway, government can control the housing program by borrowing money. For example, government controls the interest rate, and then for the mortgage loan, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that policy was failed. Unfortunately, right?
Yeah, I see. So, as I mentioned before, in England we have like social housing for people who have disabilities and things like that, or people who can't work. So, what about in Korea? If somebody maybe is disabled or they can't physically work, does the government give them like any money or anywhere to live, or is it sort of just family input that helps?
Yeah. For example, government built the apartment based on the low price, and then build the apartment, and then government rented those apartments to the poor, for example. But unfortunately, anyway, finally, for example, after 20 years, after 30 years, the poor should buy that apartment by themselves. So after 20 years, after 30 years, the poor could not buy apartment because they did not have the money, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
So those are a little ironic and distorted, right? So
Exactly.
yeah.
How they are expected to buy something if they can't work and they don't have money. It's very.
Yeah. So finally, the performance solution is to decrease the housing price. That's the solution. Final solution. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with, like I said, in England we have like a benefit system. So people claim money from the government. So it is basically like taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
That people claim if they don't work or if they can't work. But so it's interesting to me because I travel to lots of different countries and lots of countries don't have this system.
Yeah.
And I think there are benefits and there are really big disadvantages. You know, I can see both now. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So what about your friends and family? Do many of your friends and family own their own houses?
It's related to the location in Korea, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Located to the location, but so like you said, most people now are working in the city or they're traveling to the city to work, so they want to live closer to the city, so it's just going to become more and more expensive as the demand.
Yes. Actually, in the local side, apartment is a little cheap anyway. So For example, if we go to the local side and walk in the local side, we can buy a house easily, frankly. But
Yeah.
it's not easy to go to the local side because anyway, it's not easy to find a job in near the city, near the big city, in the big city. So anyway, the government should consider the various factor to control the housing price, right?
Exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly. Yeah, I think as well a lot of foreigners are
Oh.
moving to Korea because it's become very kind of commercialized almost
Ah.
in the past like 5 years.
Yes.
And
Do
I
you
think
have an
maybe
experience to go to Korea, right?
Yes, I'm going to Korea.
Wow.
In a few days, I'm going to go and just stay for 1 week.
Yes, good. Do you mind if I ask where you go to?
Yeah, I'm just going to go to Seoul.
Seoul. Yeah, Seoul is fantastic. I think so. But if I need to buy a house in Seoul, and then I can go to the Seoul step by step. I bought the house near the Seoul, but I cannot buy a house in Seoul. Right.
Yeah, it's expensive.